Welcome to the Puck and Pigskin Podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. Just great sports fans talking mostly about hockey and football, sprinkled with a bit of everything else. Now, here's your host, a Flames fan with a Golden Knights backup plan, Jason Bizik.
All right, I am joined now by Zach Martin and Alex Nuttle from the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast. Alex, of course, also has the CBJ After the Blast podcast. Gentlemen, welcome to Puck and Pigskin.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man.
So let's dive right into what's going on right now in the league. You guys are both in the same division, the Hawks and the Jackets. Both currently out of a playoff spot, but knocking on the door. So what are your guys, let's start with your guys' thoughts so far this season and how the season is going. We'll start with Zach.
Surprisingly, going into the season, I didn't really think that the Hawks were going to be in the position that they're in now. I mean, if you go back to listen to episode 1 when we did our predictions, I said they'd be at best 6 where we were at. You know, Taze was out, Doc was going to be out for 5 months. He came back early. You didn't know what the goalie situation was going to be like, and then Kevin Lincoln came out of nowhere. Then you have Philip Kurashev, Pius Suter doing really well. Brandon Hagel's been doing really good. A bunch of other guys, Ian Mitchell, Wyatt Kalanick came up, and Alex DeBrincat's found his scoring touch. Dylan Strum's been scoring a lot recently. Just unfortunately, the month of March, they went like 5, like 5, 10 and something. It's just March was a bad month for them. So right now, unfortunately, they did lose their 4th place spot. But you know what? All in all, I'm just glad that the Hawks actually were more competitive than we thought they were going to be, and at least it gives us optimism for what possibly next year and a couple seasons down the road where we're going to be at. So overall, I'm happy with how the season went. The last month or so, not so much because of after a great start we've had. But you know what? It's a young team. We have a bunch of young guys. It's a fill out year to see how everyone's going to be moving in the future. But overall, I'm excited for this team. Just kind of wish they kind of turned it on in the last month. But they're still in it, only 2 points back at 4th place. So can't complain too much. Just like for the power play to show up again, like it was for most of the season when you're tied for 2nd, and now it's gone like stone cold. So
when as soon as Doc went down and Taves was out, and I think Crawford retired, or what happened to Crawford? I can't remember what happened to him. Did he retire?
Well, actually, the Hawks didn't really bring him back, so he actually went to New Jersey on a 2-year deal. But he didn't retire just because of a lot of stuff going on. So we weren't even going to roll with Crawford going into the season anyway. So it was mostly just it was they thought it was going to be with Subban and Delia. Lincoln was going to be the 3rd guy after the Tampa series where they got outscored like 10-5. Lincoln comes in and is basically just taking over the starting job. So. It's one of those things, but yeah, just the fact that Lincoln's come out of nowhere, and the fact that he's in talks for a Calder as a rookie. How good he is as a rookie player right now as a goalie, I'll take it. So at least that's the one bright spot that we have. We might have the goalie of the future.
Subban is surprising me because he did somewhat well in Vegas, and then I thought he was going to do really well in Chicago, but he's kind of yeah. Alex, how about Columbus? What are your thoughts so far on the season in Columbus?
Overall, obviously, in my personal expectations were kind of underwhelming. We haven't really done much. You thought that after the trade with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Patrick Laine that things were kind of going to jump up a little bit, that, hey, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we're getting this superstar. Things are going to go well. Well, no, as I've said on a couple of our episodes, and Zach is probably tired of hearing me saying it, there's a common denominator in Columbus. All the issues that we've had, and we've gone through so many different players, some systems, different structures, everything. And there's one thing that has remained the same, and that's the coach. Now I can let you put the pieces together and figure out what I think should happen, but I don't think we're going to do much else this year. I don't see us making the playoffs unless something drastically changes. We lost this embarrassing series to Detroit this past weekend, and that was very hard to watch any of that. On the CBJ after the blast, that was not easy to have to recap those games at all. Having to, you watch it and you're like, all right, well, this is already bad enough. And then I have to relive it and go through it all over again.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but it's okay. I think a lot of it's going to depend on, with Columbus, how they handle the next 5 or 6 games. We have our 2-game series this weekend with the Panthers. Then we have 2 more games against Tampa at home. And then we have our 2-game series with Chicago. And I think from Columbus's standpoint, it really depends on what's going to happen really in the next 4 games to be able to determine if we're going to be buyers or sellers or anything like that at the trade deadline, to be able to make a decision if we're going to do anything or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll have the 2 wins in Chicago for sure, so that'll be good.
Yeah. Easy wins.
Okay.
So do you think, with you were speaking about the coaching and then Tortorella, do you think Tortorella, and he's coached in Calgary before, so I know where you're coming from, he seems to me like a guy who's just kind of stubborn in his ways and doesn't like to kind of adapt to situations that he's with. What do you think?
Yes and no. I do believe he is stubborn to an extent, but you've heard from a lot of the players, and then also you can kind of see it in how the teams act and how the teams handle themselves. Since he was coaching like Tampa Bay back in 2004, it's gotten a little bit different. You can tell he's opening up. He's having more of an open mind to be able to try different things and try different structures and systems. But I think it's one of those things that if it doesn't work for 3 games, okay, well, we have old reliable. We're going to go right back to the exact same thing that I've done forever on all these teams. Mm-hmm. You see him go to these teams, and I didn't pay attention to it. I think it was during one of Zach and I's live streams, somebody pointed it out that the career for John Tortorella for his coaching, he usually will go into a team, and the first 4 seasons is great. It's, you're on an uphill swing. You look fantastic. You have a lot of promise. And then that 5th year, he's terrible. And it's like that with every single team. And we're in that 5th or 6th year, and it's not looking good. So it's one of those things. I think I could see him being a fantastic candidate to go to Buffalo after the season's over, because his contract is up after the year, and that's not as a long-term situation, but he's good at changing the culture around whichever organization he's at. And I think Buffalo needs that right now. Columbus, we're kind of past that. We've got over the 12, 13 years of being in last place all the time. Now we're going to just be stuck right in the middle at 4th or 5th place all the time. So it's one of those things. I think that he's a great coach for the right situation, and I think we're past that in Columbus.
Yeah. Now, what are your guys' thoughts? And I'll start with Zach again on the interdivision play only this season. How are you liking that?
I mean, it's different. We saw it with MLB and stuff like that, and we saw that it kind of worked in that sort of way where you just had those teams like in the central, all the teams that were in the central for the MLB. And right now that's kind of what we're doing with NHL, doing all these teams in their own divisions, which kind of makes sense because they want to try to limit travel, cross COVID, cross pollination of all that other stuff as well. And, trying to, going into Canada was going to be tough and stuff like that. So I don't mind it. It's definitely weird having you got the Western Conference and Eastern Conference teams kind of together in one division. Then you really don't know how the playoff format's going to be because you don't know who's going to be facing who when you get to the semifinals, when you have all your division winners in those small little brackets. So it's interesting. I'm already tired of playing the Florida teams constantly because they're always they've been an issue for us this year. So I'm kind of ready to go back to play the Western Conference where we have Minnesota, Colorado. We already had Dallas, we already had Nashville, but it'll be nice to have our own division back again and stuff like that. But I mean, it's unique, for the season that it is, how short it is, how many days, how many games we have. It's definitely different, but it's not all for good. So I mean, I'm fine with how it is right now, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of ready to go back to play our Western Conference teams. I mean, like I said, it's also nice too that the games start like sooner for me because of the fact that I live on the East Coast. Now I don't have to be up until like 10 o'clock for a start time when they're in like Vancouver or in LA and stuff like that. So that's also nice, but it has its pros and cons. But overall, I mean, I like it. It's more, there's more drama because of the fact that it's every game is a 4-point swing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like every point matters compared to like how if it's a normal season. So overall, there's some stuff I like, some stuff I don't like, but you know what? It's hockey. We got a season. You know, we have storylines, and that's what helps. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I myself, I'm tired of the Flames playing Ottawa Senators, which were the worst team in the league, and they seem to own us this season, even though they're pretty bad. But what do you think, Alex, of the interdivision play this season?
I don't mind it. It's one of those things, like Zach was saying, it's okay for the year, but I don't want to see it as a permanent solution. With all of this COVID nonsense, they were just trying to get a season started, and they did that successfully. And I think everybody knew, hey, it's only 56 games. You're going to be playing these teams 8 times, or if you're in Canada, 9 or 10 times. Just essentially suck it up for a year, and we'll get back to normal next year. Mm-hmm. So I think the players and the Players Association knew that they were going to have to take some sacrifices for the year to be able to have a season to begin with. Now, would I like to see some restructuring of divisions? Yes. That's getting a little more complicated. For example, my big thing, and I've talked to Zach about this before, I don't understand why Columbus and Detroit are not in the same division, and they're 3 hours away from each other. Yeah. Makes absolutely no sense. But yet we have the Carolina Hurricanes, who are 4 hours away from Tampa, and I don't get it. But I'm glad that we were able to have a season, so it's one of those things that you can't really complain too much about it.
Yeah, I think it's the same with, I believe, Vegas and Arizona. Arizona's in a different division, and they're only a few hours away from Vegas, so definitely a weird situation there.
Well, I know when we actually do get back to normal, Arizona is moving over into the Central when Seattle comes in. So actually, Arizona.
Oh yeah.
So Arizona will be part of the Central Division with the Hawks, the Jets, the Wild, and stuff like that. Then Seattle will take their spot in the Pacific. So that will actually get changed. But I agree with Alex. So Carolina, and it's just how they set up the division, so they didn't want to lose that Boston, Montreal, Boston, Toronto rivalry, which doesn't make sense. But it's kind of like, how do you not have Columbus and Detroit in the same division? Because that'd be a bigger rivalry because of the fact that it's only like a 3-4 hour drive. So I agree with Alex. So when we actually do get back to the East-West, I wish they would kind of tweak the divisions a little bit in terms of, I know geographically they have to try and make it to make sense, but I think they're missing out on the rivalry for sure.
Like we talked about before, Zach, you have this big rivalry between the Penguins and the Flyers, right? Interstate, it's Philadelphia. There's colleges in Philadelphia and Pitt that hate each other. Well, everybody knows about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Why not capitalize on that and have the Ohio hockey team and the Michigan hockey team play each other and start to develop that same rivalry and hatred for each other?
Right, exactly.
I don't see why not.
And
that has to be logical sense. And we know how the NHL is sometimes.
Yeah. And I haven't looked ahead to the playoffs this season or heard about how they're structuring that, because once they come out of their divisions, are they going to be traveling, or is there going to be a bubble again like last season?
As far as I've heard, we don't know for sure what they're doing, if it's going to be a bubble or if it's going to be how they're doing that. I know they're going to go, I think they're doing the 1 through 4 seedings based on your season points and stuff like that, whoever's the final 4. Once you get your actual division winners out of those groups. But in terms of where they're going to do it at, I have not heard anything else of how exactly they're going to play that out. So I guess because the fact that it's only like those guys are facing each other and then they're going to play the 2 finalists, I guess they might be easier to have more traveling. Now, if it's a Canadian team, then we're definitely going to figure out how they're going to do that. So I guess most likely, my guess is probably a bubble, just because of the fact that if you have that one Canadian team, I don't think they want to try to do multiple guys flying back and forth for a
Right.
7-game series
Yeah.
going into Canada. So my guess is probably a bubble, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. So I guess we'll see.
It just makes sense, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, with everything going on, you're going to sit there and get down to the semis. And once you're out of divisional play, then you're going to be down to, you know, one Western, one North, one East, and one Central. It only makes sense to have them in a bubble. And then, if anything, do it in the States, because going to Canada, it's a 7-day quarantine. In the States, it's 48 hours with 2 negative tests. Have the 1 and 4 seed play one night, the 2 and 3 seed play the other night. And then that's just all you have to do is alternate until that series is done, and then you're in the finals.
Not to mention, I think only 2 Canadian teams are going to come out of the division, so it'd be a lot easier for 2 teams to travel to the States to play, you know, 14 teams as opposed to the other way around. So, or not 14. Yeah. You see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So we're approaching the trade deadline, and Alex, do you think the Columbus is going to make any more moves before the trade deadline?
Right now, not to help Columbus. I think they're going to be sellers. The big thing I've seen is I think they could easily be getting rid of David Savard for some draft capital or a prospect or something like that. I've seen a lot of stuff with Florida, Nashville, Edmonton. I've seen a lot of different teams. I think Colorado is one of them too, to get him as a rental defenseman just for the rest of the year. And it makes sense. I've seen a lot of stuff with Nick Foligno and Michael Del Zotto and even one of the goalies. I don't think they're going to make, I've seen a lot of the rumors about the Blue Jackets are trying to put together a package for Jack Eichel. Something of that caliber, I don't see happening until the offseason, because they're not going to waste time. He's hurt. So I don't think if anybody is making a trade for him right now, they're dumb, because you're going to be making a big trade for Jack Eichel and he's just going to continue sitting on the bench and probably not play the rest of the season. But overall, I do see him making some trades, but it's probably just going to be to get some more draft picks. And then once we get that many more draft picks and draft capital and prospects, then that is more in our pocket, more at our expense to be able to use in the offseason to make these big moves that we want.
Mm-hmm. Zach, what about Chicago? You think they'll be making any moves?
Honestly, I could see them possibly, if they really want to, probably go and let like Janmark go somewhere if possible. Probably let Soderberg go somewhere, because right now they're in a position where it's like they're ahead of schedule by a couple of years of being, a competitive team. It honestly, because it really wouldn't make sense for them to go make a push to go get a 4 seed and then have to play Tampa in the first round, or you're playing Carolina. If we're playing Carolina, then you might have a shot at getting out of there. But if they're playing Tampa in the first round, that's going to be tough because we haven't played Tampa well all year. So I've said this on our podcast. If Florida played like how they were supposed to be, 7th or 8th place in the division, and you had 2 more spots more likely to be able to go get instead of just 1, and it has to be against Tampa, then I would say maybe you can see a push. But right now, you're playing for the 4 seed to play probably Tampa. I really don't see the Hawks really making a push right now. I would say, if anything, they're bringing, like what Alex said, go help another team go get draft capital. But if honestly, because we had a guest of ours, Duke, he came on last night on the podcast, and he brought up a point that I thought was really good too. If we just stick with the team that we have, bring Soderberg back, bring Janmark and Walmark and all those guys back, because they're on 1-year deals. Bring them back, run it back with this team, and then they have $21 million in cap. Go spend it in the offseason. Go get more, forward depth. Go get some help on the blue line. Maybe figure out what you're going to do with Subban, if you're going to get rid of him, and then bring another goalie in. Maybe bring some more shooters and stuff like that, and just build some depth, fix the D line. I think then you're talking about a Blackhawks team that could potentially make a run. I don't know for a cup, but a deep playoff run next season. So if anything, it's either going to be selling or sticking with what we have, bring some guys in next year, and then run it back with the team we have now with some additions, and go do something next year or the season after that in like 2022, 2023. So right now for this season, I say either sell or stick with what we got.
So do you feel that they'd be in a totally different position right now with Taves in the lineup?
Even without Taves in the lineup, they were doing pretty well at one point. Before March started, they were I think 7 points above Columbus, and when they were in the 4 spot, 7 points above Columbus, and I think Columbus was 3 or 4 above Nashville. So, would I say would we be different with Taves? I would say I think we'd probably still be in the spot where we are at, but I think we'd probably be a little bit closer to the top 3. I would still say we're probably a 4 seed team. Like I said, if Florida wasn't being the team that they are right now, they're playing out of their minds and playing a lot better than people thought they would. If this was a normal, it's Carolina, Tampa, then it's possibly Chicago, Columbus, Nashville, all fighting for 3, 4, 5. Maybe you're talking about Dallas and 6. Then we're talking a different story of where the Hawks would be at. But because Florida threw a wrench in the whole system, now you're fighting for a 4 spot, and it's kind of those 3 teams are so far ahead. I think even with Taves, I still think we'd be 4, but probably a little bit closer to the 3 seed than where we're at right now, where we're so far behind them. And now we're fighting with Nashville, who's now 2 points ahead because they just beat us today. And then with with Columbus being 1 point behind. So,
and what exactly? Now I haven't seen much about Taves in the news wise. What is his injury? Is he coming back anytime soon, or what exactly is going on there?
Nothing. No one really knows what's going on, and no one really wants to speculate because you want to give the respect to the player.
Yeah,
what's going on with his personal life, and he's the captain. He's got 3 Stanley Cups. Conn Smythe. You want to give him the respect and give him the space that's needed for him to do what he needs to do to take care of himself. So I'm not going to speculate out of respect for him. And no one else is going to do it either, and no one wants to write that story because it's more of a respect thing for Taves. So honestly, no one really knows what's going on. All I can really say is that I hope he's okay. I hope he's feeling all right. And hopefully whatever's going on does get better, and then hopefully he comes back this year. If not, then just let him have this. It's the short season just to rest up and then get ready for 2021, 2022, and go from there. So. Unfortunately, I have really no news on Taves, and no one else really does either. Basically, it's between Taves and the team. And, of course, the team's not going to release a statement. So
no.
It is what it is.
Now, Alex, I'll ask you a similar question. Would Columbus be a different team with Patrik Laine in the lineup? Or has he been in the lineup?
He has been. They're running into some scoring struggles, and Laine's having some struggles of his own. I think a lot of that is, the Columbus's biggest issue, and Zach knows this, is we don't have a center. We have almost nobody up the middle, and the guys that we do have that are quote unquote centers are either rookies or guys with very little experience or anything like that. We have been missing a number 1 center for years. And when we had him, Pierre-Luc Dubois was that number 1 center. Now, is he a number 1 center? No. We need a guy like a Jack. We don't have a guy like a Jack Eichel or a Connor McDavid or anything like that. It's our number 1 center changes every night. And right now it's Max Domi.
Yeah.
Which, granted, when he was playing for the London Knights, he was a center. So fine. But then as soon as he hit Arizona and Montreal, it was okay. Well, they moved him to wing, and he's going to play so he can get a paycheck, but he wasn't a fan of it. So it's one of those things. There's so many issues with Columbus, and our biggest one is we need a center. Patrik Laine is still struggling a little bit. Jack Roslovic, I have no idea what his problem is right now. He's great one game.
He started off great.
Yeah. He started off really good. I think in the 31 games he's played, he has 28 points or something. 22. I'd have to double check that, but
he's got 22.
Either way, it's one of those things that he started off hot, but he cooled off, and he is very moody when it comes to his play. And a lot of the other guys are like that too. Cam Atkinson's the same way. When he's hot, but Patrik Laine is the guy that we need to get going. And it's one of those things that initially Torts was not playing to Laine. He was trying to get everybody else going. Well, when you have a guy like Patrik Laine in your lineup, he stays in your lineup, and I'm sorry, you build around him. You don't build around your structure or your defense. No, you build around line A, put him in the position he's comfortable with, which is left wing, but he's at right wing right now for some reason. But at the same time, I'm not a coach, so I can't really make that determination. But it would be nice to get him going and get Roslovic going a little more consistently and get some of these other guys that aren't doing anything and get their productivity back up.
Yeah. How's Corpusalo doing? Corpusalo, yeah. You guys, looking now, I haven't seen games, of course, and I haven't actually seen many highlights, but looking at the goaltending and the stats, looks like you guys are getting mediocre goaltending at best, maybe. What do you think?
Our goaltending is actually really good.
Oh, okay.
It's from if you look at statistics itself, it's going to be subpar, but the goaltending, we're only in these games because of our goaltending. Our defense has been better, but honestly, it's been non-existent. And our offense can't be offense and defense at the same time and try and catch up with the amount of goals that the other team has. If we're playing Tampa Bay, we can't let them score 5 goals, the defense not do anything, and expect our offense to be able to keep up with that. That's just not going to happen. So it's one of those things, with Corpusalo and Merzlikins are both playing very well. It's just the rest of the team doesn't want to show up. And looking at all of our games, whenever Merzlikins plays, the Blue Jackets have like a 95% chance to score 3 or more goals. Well, Corpusalo, it's been 1 or 2 goals all the time, which doesn't help. So that's why Merzlikins get some of these better wins and things like that. But Corpy is very consistent and very structured in his play and how he goes about his business.
We have that same problem in Calgary. The goaltending is a lot better than the stats would say, and the team is struggling and it's looking bad on everyone. Now I'm going to get both your comments, and I'll go back to Zach first on the Dubinsky thing here. First of all, I have to say that it's awesome to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice to finally see somebody that, doesn't put these superstars on a pedestal and treat them like gold and tells it like it is. I mean, I like Crosby. Crosby's a good player, but he's a whiner, and he's a spoilt brat. What do you think?
I mean, I thought the whole situation was hilarious because just the fact that it was unprovoked. Guys from Garage Beers didn't really say anything to get him going. He just dropped it, and then it just created this whole thing on Twitter. And you got Hockey Night in Canada talking about it. You got NBC, Washington talking about it. Bar Down, TSN, Sportsnet. It's all over the place. Like Dubinsky is sharing graphics of his quote on his Instagram story. Like, you just got people all riled up and stuff like that. Pittsburgh fans are just beyond mad at him. So it was something that was just so great, and it just adds another layer to just how hockey is probably one of the best sports out there. And I know people are gonna be like, well, it's not that popular. It's like the 4th best, and it could be maybe considered 5th. It's like, no, it's like, because you guys just don't understand how great the game is, and it's just, it adds another layer to how just fantastic the sport is, and it just adds another storyline. So overall, I thought it was just great, and for the fact that how they just got Dubinsky just to say that, and he just did it without them even asking him or anything like that. So it was fantastic, and just the fact that it just completely just blew up and it was just everywhere. It was wild, and just talking to those guys behind the scenes, and they're like, we have no idea this was even going to happen. We were just having this guy on, and all of a sudden now we're pretty much we're all over the place because of him just dropping that quote, and everyone's just getting upset about it. They're like, there's a great debate of who's the best guy is and all that. So it's just a wild scene of how that just went off like that out of nowhere. But it was just so great. It was so great.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think?
Well, I've loved Dubinsky since we got him in that trade in 2012, the big Rick Nash trade with the Rangers. He's been a staple of Columbus. You started to see a lot of the success since he came. So I've always liked him as a player. This just makes me like him as a person that much more because I live in Columbus. Everybody hates the Penguins. It's either you love the Penguins or you hate the Penguins. Anything to just make the Penguins fans more butthurt. The only downside about all this is, we have to get all these stupid pictures and GIFs on Twitter now of Sidney Crosby holding the Stanley Cup all over again. Like I thought we were done with it. We had them, and then we had the Capitals, and then the Blues, and then we've had the Lightning. Well, all of a sudden now we're having to get the Penguins fans doing it all over again. So it's whatever. But yeah, I 100% agree with him. I don't respect Sidney Crosby as a person. He's a great player. I would take Ovechkin all day just because he's the same way. If you have a beef with Ovi, what's he going to do? He's going to drop his gloves and you guys are going to scrap and you're going to get it over with. Crosby is going to sit there and complain all night and chirp. And then you're going to sit there and just shove him gently once. And then you're going to get a 10-minute game misconduct and 47 roughing penalties and all this other stuff because you sneezed on him. Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and he's just the biggest flopper in the NHL because there was that thing today between Boston and Pittsburgh, and like it looked like that they were going on a face-off, and he didn't even get touched at center ice, and he falls down like he got sniped from the top deck, and it's just like, dude, it's like, come on, man, like just stop. Like, this isn't basketball. We're not. There's guys that do flop in hockey, but it's very rare, and you get clowned for it. So it's just like, come on, Sid. Like, we know you've done this before, but it's 2021. Like, how about we just stop this and actually play hockey? Stop pretending like you got hit. Just stop.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one more hockey question. Cup predictions. Zach, who are you predicting to win the Stanley Cup this year?
All right. Well, I did. Well, at least I get to redeem myself because I did pick the Flyers, and that's kind of just went down the drain right now. So, I would say right now I'm picking Colorado to win it because they just look like a wagon right now, and I don't think anyone's really going to touch those guys. So I want to say Colorado. I would say who they'd be playing, but we don't know what the playoff format's going to be like. So I really can't give you who they're going to beat, but I'm going with Colorado because they're just too good right now, and they're pretty much just running. They're just too good in my opinion.
Well, I think they're still in the. Let me just look here. Oh, I see. They don't have it separated into conferences at the moment. So yeah, that's weird. It's weird when I look at the standings and there's no conferences either. Alex, what are your predictions?
So I have two. One is going to be the realistic one, and that is Colorado. I am on board with Zach.
To Colorado.
They are insane. That top line has accumulated like 58 points, just them in like the last 17 games or something. It's outrageous. Mm-hmm. They're so good, and I think if they can solidify their goaltending a little bit more outside of Grubauer, you have Pavel Francois. If you can get him going, then they're going to be hard to beat. My hot take winner is the Minnesota Wild. Just because of how they've played this year. They've come out of nowhere. Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen are absolutely going bananas. Matt Zuccarello has been very good since he came back. And then Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, obviously, has been going insane. But that whole team looks fantastic. And it's one of those things, if the Blue Jackets aren't in it and the Blackhawks aren't in it, I'm 100% going to be rooting for the Wild the entire time.
If real quick, if I had to pick this hot take team that Alex did, I'm going with the Winnipeg Jets as the hot take team that might win the cup.
Gross.
Alex is gross.
I knew you were going to say something. Well, I knew Alex was going to say something because the fact that they trade away Dubinsky and he goes and wins in cup, that I think that would just rile up so many Jackets fans. So the fact that they got rid of him and he goes and wins a cup that same season, that would just be pure chaos on Blue Jackets Twitter.
Okay, my predictions. So realistically, my prediction has got to be Vegas. I think they're going to actually do it this year. My hot take prediction, I'm going to say Florida.
Okay.
I'm going to say Florida. They just come out of nowhere.
Well, the thing is, though, they did just lose Ekblad, so it's going to be interesting. I would say depends on if they can still get the touch from, Barkov, if they got everyone else still rolling, Hornquist and Verhaeghe, and if the goaltending stays solid, they could do something, but it all depends on if they're going to go and replace Ekblad, because losing him for the rest of the season, that's going to be – we're going to see how Florida does for the rest of the season, and now it might be a telltale of – what's going to happen when it comes playoff time.
Yeah.
See where they're going to be at without Ekblad and what they're going to do about replacing that position. So
that's why I think so. The whole stuff we've talked about with David Savard, I could really see him going to Florida for multiple reasons. One, they just need a rental defenseman. That's exactly what Savard is. Two, Billy Zito was the assistant GM to the Blue Jackets last year. And now he's a GM in Florida. They've already made like 5 trades with the Blue Jackets since he left. They got Alexander Wimberg, Marcus Nudavara, all these other guys are going there, and we're getting picks back. I could easily see him working a deal to get David Savard moved down there to Florida to be a rental for the rest of the year to replace Ekblad so they can be contenders. If they make a move like that, I could see Florida being a dangerous team this year.
Yeah, that does make sense. All right, so stepping away from hockey now, are you outside of hockey? Are you guys NFL fans at all? Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I watch the NFL. Being in South Carolina, it's kind of hard to watch. My Browns play, but I mean, I do keep up with what's going on and stuff like that. I would say in terms of, what I pay more attention to, obviously it's hockey. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still watch the Browns. I still watch the Indians and stuff like that. I keep up with Ohio State, NC State and stuff like that, and, other sports. But yeah, but I see hockey as like my number one priority of like what sport to watch.
Any odd sports outside the top 4, like lacrosse or tennis or golf or
lacrosse, because I played lacrosse in college. I would also say probably like Formula One I watched. Soccer, Bundesliga, stuff like that. Australian rules football is actually really fun to watch. It's like a hybrid of like rugby and like football and a bunch of other stuff. So that's fun to watch too. So I have some sports that are kind of out there, but definitely I say Formula One is probably one of my favorites in terms of the non-traditional sports and soccer, of course, as well.
Alex, what about you? NFL, MLB?
So, like Zach, I don't watch a lot other than hockey. If I'm watching something, it's most likely baseball. And I'm a Reds and Mets fan, but I'm a Reds fan. I've been a Reds fan my whole life. They're terrible every year, so I'm kind of used. That's why I think being a Reds fan and a Blue Jackets fan suits me, because I'm used to the disappointment all the time. In the NFL, I haven't watched it much the last couple of years because it's kind of turned me off. Without getting into the reasons why, but I am a New England Patriots fan, so I've been a Patriots fan my entire life. Dude, 6 rings, baby.
I can see why you've been turned off then.
No, it's not even just the past year. I think a lot of it is they've politicized the sport, and I don't like that. It's there's a lot of other stuff too, but I don't really care to get into it. Outside of really hockey and baseball, I watch a bunch of Zach and I watch NASCAR. I watch Formula One. I think he watches more Formula One than I do, but I like going to Indy races and things like that. I do watch some KHL games, so the Russian Hockey League.
Yeah.
I like watching that when I can. The problem is those games start at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And most days I'm having to watch the kids. So some days I'm just kind of catching bits and pieces. Other than that, honestly, I'm telling you what, it's probably 90% hockey for me.
I'm seeing a lot of KHL highlights on Twitter, and I was thinking to myself actually just yesterday when I watched a few highlights of somehow getting into watching it. Where do you actually watch it?
I have a couple stream sites.
Oh, okay.
They are all.
You don't have to go into detail.
They're all legal for legal purposes. They're all normal.
Yeah.
but no, I have a couple sites that I watch it on, and then there are some groups on Facebook that I'm a part of, and somebody will stream it over there. The big thing is I actually have on one of the guys I'll play video games with here and there. He actually lives in England, and he watches the KHL all the time. Well, he over in England, they have a streaming service that he can watch it on. So he'll sit there and throw it up, and I can join it and watch it and things like that. So that's my easiest way that I watch it.
Yeah, because it looks really fun to watch. The highlights are spectacular, and the actual in-game production and the hype and all that looks really good too.
Yeah, because you're getting that European Russian style feel of like how it's constant cheering the entire time. Because I watched a lot of the German league, they call it the DEL, and stuff like that. And it's just basically if you ever watch a Bundesliga match where you actually have fans there and they're just singing the entire time, smoke going up, and not smoke like there's a fire, but like color pop smoke that they do. It's pure. It's like they bring up so much energy, and that's what the kind of like the KHL is. It's kind of just it gives you that soccer like atmosphere at a hockey game, and it's just wild how they get so into it over there. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of that. With it also depends on the sport and stuff. So when I was 14, I actually was selected to play for the Team USA for a travel baseball team, and we actually went and played in Puerto Rico for a week. And the guys over there in Puerto Rico and like Cuba and Dominican Republic, it's all so they just like baseball. That's all they wanted to do. They like baseball. If somebody makes a good play, it doesn't matter which team, everybody cheers, no matter who you're rooting for, because everyone respects the game, and they can respect a good play or a good hit or anything like that. It's really cool to see that. And it's, you get that same kind of feeling, especially with really any sport. But once you get that sport and go to where that's part of their livelihood. So in, specific parts of Canada, it's hockey, and you go down to like South America and some places in Europe, it's soccer, and you go over to Russia, it's hockey again. There's other places where it's basketball. It's really cool being able to see stuff like that, on some of these professional levels.
Yeah, I watch the Rod Peterson show, which is a Canadian sports talk show every day here, and they got really big into, I believe it was Japanese baseball this past year, and that became really big talk here in Canada. I don't know if it got very big in the States at all.
Yeah, it was the KBO down here.
That's what it was.
That was the South Korean. Yeah, KBO was kind of the big thing that was down here for a little bit until MLB came back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, how about the women's hockey? I noticed you guys promoting the women's hockey on Twitter, the NWHL. That was quite the thing this year, hey?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed doing that. Talking about all the teams in the league. Our little banter between us with Alex's Minnesota team, my Toronto Six, and stuff like that. And the Isabel Cup was was a great final. Great game by overall, and it was just fun to watch. And I'm excited to see what the next season brings for them, and it's just see where they go from there. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. I'm hoping they get a little bit of a better TV deal. Hopefully, maybe ESPN picks them up, put them on the Plus, go from there. But yeah, I would definitely say people really need to start getting into that, because it's like high end. It's really good hockey to watch. It's interesting. You have a lot of good goalies. You have a lot of good scorers who can put up points in a certain number of games and stuff like that. And their Twitch numbers are really good. They were hitting like 30, 40,000 views, stuff like that. They were like 0.01% of the top Twitch watchers on their Twitch overall when they were in the playoffs. So they're on the rise right now. In fact, they got Discover and a bunch of people backing them. Yeah. They're on a good trajectory. I would definitely recommend people go watch those games on Twitch, because I think they're still on there, and then just get ready for when the new season comes back next year. So I'm excited. Yeah. It's a fun league to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really good seeing you cheering for the Toronto Six, an American guy cheering for a good old Canadian team.
Hey, new kids on the block. It's kind of cool. Because I kind of follow the Senators a little bit. They're more of like my Canadian team, but I thought the jerseys they have are really nice too. And it's a new team. I wanted to get more into it and stuff like that. I'm like, why don't I just go with the new guys or the new girls on the block and just go from there. So it kind of just worked out. I know it's weird that it's Canadian team, but you know what though, they had a good social media presence. Like I said, the jerseys are really dope. Just the whole story around that team. Basically, they had to build a team from scratch in the middle of COVID and stuff like that. And they only had like 8 or 9 practices before the season. When they had to go to Lake Placid. So I just fell in love with the team, and it kind of just worked out. So it's definitely different, but glad I picked them as my team.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap things up with you guys telling everybody where they can find you. Alex, we'll start with you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @Nuttle_CBJ. You can also find me at my other podcast, the CBJ After the Blast. You can find that at CBJ Blast. I'm always on Twitter every day, a little too much, but you know what? It's fine. Not a big deal. You guys can always hit me up on Twitter if you have questions or if you want to talk hockey or really any sport. If you want to learn more fantasy hockey, I'm always there to try and help out. Not a big deal.
And what days are you dropping episodes of your podcasts?
So we've been going through a stretch where we're kind of testing the waters a little bit, but right now we're working on, we're going to be dropping episodes. Optimistically, we're going to be dropping episodes Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
We are going to have one special edition episode every week, whether that's going to be a ranking series, an episode where we talk about the OHL, the QMJHL, the WHL, the KHL. I mean, it's we're getting into all these other leagues, so we're going to start expanding a lot just outside of the NHL. And then, we have our typical Blue Jackets and Blackhawks segments that we're going to be doing. Those are going to be coming out on Saturdays. Our general portion, which is just us talking about the stuff in the league. For example, last night we recorded it. We talked about some of these suspensions that we've had that are an absolute joke.
Don't even get me started on Connor McDavid, but you can go listen to the podcast to get my feelings on that.
Yeah. I purposely left that out.
But
good call.
Those are going to be coming out on Sundays. We actually recorded an interview with Corey Patterson,
Nice.
Who is a new member of Belly Up Sports and who is a former professional hockey player in the WHL and the ECHL. That was fantastic. That was by far one of the best episodes we've ever done.
By far.
That was absolutely amazing. I loved that episode. And then we're going to start having all that stuff drop on a regular basis every week.
Nice.
Yep.
And Zach, where can everybody find you?
Find me at CLE Zach. Like Alex said, talking about hockey. I mean, I might talk about other sports as well. If you have any questions or you just want to, talk about baseball, Formula One, soccer, football, whatever, I'm always down to talk. Basically, same reasons. I'm probably on a little bit too much, but if you want to build a brand, you got to be more active and reach out to people and build those relationships and stuff like that. So it has its pros and cons, but I enjoy being on there and stuff like that. And of course, you can catch our podcast at Cannon Hawks Pod. We have a link tree. Go find where you can find or listen to our podcast. Go check out our fabulous sponsors over there as well. We also have links to Belly Up Sports to check out articles and all the other podcasts too. So.
Subscribe to YouTube.
Subscribe. Smash that like button and subscribe.
Yes.
Yep. 5-star ratings or reviews. Go, and also hit the bell for on YouTube so you can get all of our episodes when they first drop. So all that good stuff.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, it was great talking to you guys, and I guess we will end it here.
All right, thanks for having us on, man.
Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Jason.
You too, man.